Am
Okay,
I
got
audible?
it. Yeah, yeah, you're audible. So you have around 12 years of experience, right?
Yes.
Yeah, got it. So I was looking into your resume. Okay. So, so how much you rate yourself in microservices point of view?
Well, I'm not sure what would 10 means, but I can say in microservices I am pretty much comfortable. I can rate probably 7 or 8 out of 10.
Okay, okay. So, are you hands-on on architecting, design, and solution?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what are the tools you use mainly to design your architecture in your for your application?
So I understand. So draw.io are the open tools where we draw various diagrams and the connections between various services we try to display as much as possible. But various clients which I have worked with mostly are from like a BFSI domain. They have their own Confluence and they mention all the diagrams there in the Confluence pages itself. But when the sprint starts, people mention using different methodologies.
Okay, got it, got it. So right now you are using Agile, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Agile.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing on the design perspective, so when you get a design, right? One, I mean, not design, I will say when you get a requirement, new requirement, okay, from customer or from client. So how do you
Okay.
start on the design perspective? What are the things you take care in your design?
Got that. So I give you one example. So there was a requirement which we were working upon. But before that, I just want to say that I have also been playing four key major roles. One is this architect role. The second is team lead role, where I take care of 8 engineers in my team. And then third is the individual contributor, where I make changes myself to the system by doing the code changes and deploying that to the production. And fourth is education and communication lead role, where I collaborate with various developers and tech leads from the entire organization from different teams to talk about any changes which any team is doing in the system, which may have an impact on other parts of the system. So that communication is quite necessary. Now coming back to your point, when the requirements comes in the most beginning in the requirement gathering process, we have other architects also. So we mention certain solutions to solve particular problem. We mention pros and cons of taking certain approaches, and we create certain diagrams also in order to solve those problems. And once one of the approach or one of the solution gets finalized, then we go ahead and create certain epics in our Jira, in our agile methodologies. And then in consecutive sprints, we pick up certain tasks which can be completed in that certain sprint. Uh, can you just give me 5 seconds? I want to close my door.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, okay. So when you talk about the design principles of microservices point of view, so what are the main principles you have worked on? I mean, in your current project.
So in microservices, we have certain design patterns. One of the thing which I have seen in the previous project was the uh, what we say this circuit breaker design pattern. Shall I explain more about the circuit breaker design pattern? There are several design patterns I am aware of.
Okay, you can tell the names only.
So, okay, sure. So, circuit breaker design pattern is one. Then CQRS, which is command query response aggregator, is another one. And then we have the strangler design patterns. And then we have certain design patterns in terms of making changes to the orchestration of the microservices, the way we will commit our changes. So there is two-phase commit, and another one is event bus way of committing, which will land in eventually commit and hard commits. There are certain others also I'm unable to recollect at this moment. If you can tell me the name, I can explain the depth and the understanding of those design patterns.
Okay, yeah. So do you know what is blue and green deployment design pattern?
Blue-green deployment. Okay, so that is a way of our architecture in case we have to. Now, let's say our changes have been deployed in a certain branch. What we will do, we will push those changes in one of the server, and we will create a switch on the production. Once our changes will be ready on one of the server, we will switch it back to that particular server, while the other server will be free and can proceed with the rest of the development and the next sprint. So we call it blue green because at one point of time we will be switching our production APIs to one box, while the other box will be in process of getting the latest changes deployed.
Okay, got it. Okay, so suppose I'll give you a problem statement. You can tell how to resolve that. Okay. So suppose you have two microservices. Okay.
Okay.
Like you are posting some profile, like you update your profile, right? Sometimes from your website. Okay. So
Okay.
you are trying to update your profile. That is a profile web service. I mean profile microservice. And there is
Okay.
another service from profile. It is talking to another service, just like for statement. Okay, just for example. Okay, some statement microservice where the profile related information like date of birth and all, which are secure and PI information, updates there only. Okay, now in the runtime, right, profile service is up, but the other service is not working. The statement service is not working. Some issue is there. So how do you resolve it?
So let me first understand the scenario, and let me repeat back what I understood so that we are on the same page and there are no communication gaps. You are saying that we have a parent microservice which is speaking with one of the child microservice in order to complete the request, and the request is to update our profile.
Yeah.
Am I correct so far?
Some profile statements you need to update from statement.
Understood.
So there are two
And
microservices. Okay. So profile, another is statement. So profile is talking to statement microservice, but statement microservice has some issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. And this profile microservice need to update that information as a statement in this statement microservice as a to complete the to gain the complete response back to the requester, right?
Yes.
Got that. So in circuit design pattern, that's what we do. We have this open, closed, and half open, half closed state. So what we can do, we can put a proxy on top of that microservice, which is participating in completing the response for us. And we can know that this particular microservice always gets down. We may not have complete control over that particular microservice. Maybe that is deployed by some third party agencies, and that is beyond our control. We cannot make changes to it. That's why we will put a proxy in front of it, and instead we will consume that microservice directly. We will consume this proxy, and this proxy will be communicating with the actual microservice. And in the closed state, all the requests which we are sending to this proxy will be sent further to this end microservice, and we will get the fair response. But sometimes it will happen that, let's say, out of the 100 requests, we will maintain a criteria that 15 or 20, if are not passing through, then we will keep it in half open, half closed state, which means we will not entertain all the requests, and we will give back a response that this particular microservice is not working. So this can save us in maintaining a good response, and we can bring more asynchronous capabilities in the entire infrastructure, which can help us complete our response beside the scenarios that one of the microservices is not working.
Okay. So what is the cloud you have worked on?
So mostly I have worked upon AWS, but I am open to learn more about Google Compute Engine and Azure also. Somewhere in the past I have worked upon Google Compute Engines also. There was a startup company I was working for. They were using the machines from GCP.
Okay, got it, got it. So in AWS, what are the different services you are hands on?
Mostly I have worked on this EC2. I mean, the most popular services are EC2 and S3 storage classes. This is the, you can say 98% of the users you will see in open market using these two services. But I had worked upon more of them. For example, there are load balancers, there are security groups, there are VPN, then there are private links, and there are CDN service, CloudFront, and the CloudFormation, which is infrastructure as a service, and there are global accelerators also which I have used, and API gateways.
Okay, and
To
do you know Kubernetes concept?
Kubernetes and Dockerization, I know.
Okay, oh, you know, right? So in AWS, EKS you are using?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And what are the different commands of Kubernetes or Docker you know? I mean, you work day
Well,
by day.
honestly speaking, I never equip myself with the memorization of the commands because it is very much available handy in terms of documentation. Whenever I need to implement something, I quickly go to the documentation. I do some test scenarios on my local, and then I implement that particular thing. AWS have evolved now to so much of new commands. For example, every single service have a different script
Okay,
written into it.
I am not saying about AWS command. I'm saying about the Docker commands.
Docker commands, I mean, there is initialization, then there is building the entire script, and then there is sending the entire script as a deployment to those particular nodes. But I am unable to recollect the exact syntax of those commands, sir.
Okay, got it. Okay, there is a live whiteboard coding. Can you open that?
Yeah, that was the original link which was sent in the email. I have that. Shall I share my screen?
Yeah, sure. So Java, Java, which version you are good?
Java 1.8, I saw most of the clients are using today in the industry. So I am also comfortable with the stream APIs, functional interfaces, and optional criteria of the Java 8.
Okay. So using Java 8, can you just give an example of the code? Code is something like this. I'll give you a collection. Okay, in that collection there will be employees. Okay, employees means nothing but the object of employee.
Okay.
And from there you need to filter only the employees whose age is greater than 50.
I understood. So do we have that collection in front of us, or do you want me to create that?
Collections is you need not to create that. You take it. It is already there. You can write that filter streaming lines of code.
I mean, I'm not getting here a bit confused here. So shall I write the complete code here?
Yeah, there on.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. You write it.
I understood. So I'm writing one. Let's say first, let me create one class here. It is public class main. Okay, so let me create one class employee. And you said filter based upon the age, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so just for the reference, I am putting it as a public static. Otherwise, I should have kept it as a private. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to more focused on the stream APIs, I'm just writing it as public static into now, let's say, age. So this is just an employee class here, and I have the list of employee. Let's say employees. The name of the list. So we have this list and you want me to filter them. Okay. Shall I maintain a new list, or do you want me to filter and put it back in the same list?
Yeah, either any one of them is fine.
Okay, so in that case I will use this one, dot filter, and then I will give one filter command here. Let's say A has one of the annotation, and then I can say that A dot age should be greater than let's say 35, and then I will terminate this streaming. By the way, this filter is an intermediate operation on this one. Oh, my apologies, I should first do the stream on this one. So I created a stream, then I did the filter, and then I terminated it as a collect, and I can say here collections list. Probably I should do it in my local ID. Is that okay? If I do it in my local ID, I would be able to know the exact syntaxes correctly.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I think it is fine. I got it. What you're trying.
Okay. So something like this it will look, and then this list will go back to this employees. So employees will have only those employees whose age is greater than 35.
Okay.
And now instead of collecting it as list, if we want to print it, then I would do dot for each, and inside for each I will pass let me show you. So inside for each I will pass one println statement, which will look something like this: system dot out. I hope my screen is completely visible,
Yeah.
including the whole code which I have written.
Yep. So employees new array list, employees equals employees dot stream. You are streaming the collection, then you are doing the filter, and you are printing. Okay, using for each. Okay, here. Okay, that's fine. So suppose this is little bit different now. Okay, the use case. So I'll be filtering as it is now. Wherever it is 35, age is greater than 35, in that case I need to mark the employee maybe employee standard as or employee standard is little senior kind of. Okay, employee type you can take, employee type is senior.
Okay.
I need to update this. Yeah, this some string will be there, type. Yeah, so this I need to update as senior.
Okay, let's say from A to B you want to do.
Yeah, whichever type it is there on that employee. I suppose it is junior is there, or senior.
I understood
also
your point.
will be there. Yeah.
I understood. So depending upon the age, if the age is greater than 35, you want me to make changes to that particular employee object, and the change is about updating the type to some different string type, whatever that scenario is.
Yeah.
I understood your question. Let me give me a few seconds. Let me think about it. Okay, so I think we can do that here inside this for each statement. So in the beginning we have streamed it, we have filtered it. So after this 18th line, we have only those filtered objects. Okay, so I just need to change this complete lambda function. So here I'm just saying that a dot age is greater than 35. So if this scenario is true, then for each I will simply update them. Now I can forward another lambda function inside this, and I can say that for this a dot type should be that particular string value.
Okay, so it will update also.
Yeah, I think that it should update from age to type will be equal to B, because all the objects will be, whatever changes we will be making in the objects, they will stay permanent in those objects itself.
Okay. Do you know map? How to use map here?
Map we generally use to transform the data type itself. Now, uh, let's say we have integers and we want to create the collection of strings out of the integers, then we will do the dot map, and inside map we will pass that function and we will return the string. So the whole collection which we will come out will be the list of strings.
Okay.
Now let's say, shall I write it down, that scenario? Which have
type,
so let's say we have list of integers. Let me call it integers, and we have new integer array list here. Now I want to collect all of this thing in terms of list of string. So what I will do, I will say integers dot stream, and then I will say dot map here. Inside the map I will say transform this A to something like this. Either I will use this operation or I will say string dot value of, I think that is more appropriate, string dot value of this A, and then I can say collect all of this.
Okay, you can stop sharing now, that's fine.
Okay, but may I just do it inside my IDE, so that the code which I will be pasting here in this particular window should be actually accurate code? Is that okay? Shall I do that?
That is okay, but yeah, it's fine. That's fine.
Because it was written in the window that we should keep the code also for the better evaluation. So I am expecting that if you are going to check the accurate code, then I can make the accurate code. Otherwise, I can leave it.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Or you can do it later also. You will get it.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Got that.
Yeah. So when we talk about the Spring Boot now, so how do you do exception handling in Spring Boot?
So in Spring Boot, I mean, I think when we are referring to Spring Boot here, we are referring to the entire Spring framework in terms of exception handling. We can create an annotation. I'm really sorry, I am bad with memorizing the exact annotations and exact syntax, but there is an annotation which we can use on top of one of the class, and we can mark that as an exception handler class. Certain type of exceptions can all come from our requests to this particular class, and this class we can mark appropriately in terms of those exceptions. Otherwise, if your question is in general how the exception handling happens, then I can tell you more about the try-catch scenarios.
Yeah, you can tell that also. Yeah, you can speak that also.
Okay, so try-catch block, we have all the code written inside the try, and then we have the catch block. Inside the catch block, we mention the specific exceptions, and then there is a complete tree of exceptions which happens whenever any exception is occurring inside the tree block. The most child exceptions will be mentioned the most first in the order of the catch blocks, so that it can fall in that appropriate catch block. And if the exception is bigger in scope, then the more parent catch blocks will be called and the exception will be called there. In the end, we can put one finally block also, which we can say that as the completion of the try catch block, whether the exceptions are occurring or not, then finally block will be executed. The finally block, mostly people use it to close certain connections. For example, let's say if we have opened up a file or we have opened up some database connection somewhere in our try block, then we want to close that before the entire try catch block scenario goes away.
Okay. So how do you make sure your application is optimized as part of memory management?
Uh, are we referring to the garbage collection scenarios of JVM?
Yeah, that
I mean,
also
from
comes as part of this. Yeah, definitely. But so before deployment, how do you make sure that your product is safe as part of the memory leak?
understood. So, what I strongly believe in as a developer is that we should not raise those scenarios where we are checking the memory out exception by using certain tools by creating a dump. I think we can prevent going in those scenarios, and we can check everything programmatically itself. If our coding is done from the perspective of using lesser memory and faster execution, then we may not need to fall back to taking the dump and doing the memory leaks checking. My approach to writing the program is to use the specific data structure to solve a problem. And you would be glad to know that the code which I was writing on the lead code was running in the least time and least memory usages. This capability came after uh, practicing huge number of problem solving on the lead code and previously on the HackerRank. So I think by using appropriate data structures and using handle these try catch exception scenarios and managing certain runtime exceptions. And then the third thing which we can do is to manage those garbage collections of the objects and not creating unnecessary objects. Use a singleton as much as possible, so that let's say for creating the connections to certain databases, we do not need to create objects again and again. We can work out with one single object which has been created as part of our singleton design pattern.
Yeah. So you're saying these are the ways, right, to make our code safe as part of the memory leak, right? But I was asking, how do you? So suppose you have written the code, okay? But in the code, because you are not only typing the code, right? There are multiple developers in your product. Maybe you are only not reviewing, multiple reviewers are there, okay? So somewhere there is a leak, okay? You don't know
Okay.
where is the leak, right? There are multiple huge lines of code and all are there, right? Big repository. So somewhere there is an
Okay.
issue. So how will you make sure your product is safe as part of the memory leak?
So you're saying somewhere some developer had made changes which is making the memory leak in our particular product, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And your question is how
How to
would
identify?
I
How to identify
how to
them?
identify?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Uh,
Because you cannot go line by line, right? All huge codes.
so there are so many tools available. I mean, if you're asking me the best practices, then I can say that we should write enough unit test cases, Mockito test cases, end-to-end test cases, and behavior-driven test cases, so that we can see each line, each function, and each particular feature of our code. But if your question is exactly about finding that particular leak, I think we can use certain tools which are available. And as part of our infrastructure, we can deploy those codes also. Whenever anybody is raising a PR, those codes will run automatically and will generate a report. And if it finds something, awkward or unpredictable in the code, which is not expected, then those notifications can happen to our architects and tech leads before actually merging those PR changes. I mean, that we can do as part of process, so that our product doesn't end up having those changes which are not safe.
Okay. So recently, like down the line, 1 to 2 years back, I think there was an issue,
Okay.
huge issue on the Log4j. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, there was a security issue. Some vulnerabilities were exposed in the Log4j. There are so many news articles I read. To be honest, I am not exactly remembering what exactly was the issue in the Log4j. But somewhere I think we had also taken care of it by switching to the safer version of the Log4j.
Okay, okay. So, how do you
There
make?
was something hard bleed also. I remember when I was working in CA Technologies. Uh, I mean that particular issue was coined as hard bleed. It started from China. Certain systems has shown this vulnerability, and it was about the encryption methodology. So one of the algorithm of encryption was broken by Chinese hackers, and that has shown vulnerability. That one I remember, to be honest, in this moment when you ask this question.
Mhm. So, suppose in your code, right, there are so many jars you use. So, how do you make
Okay.
sure your jars are safe?
So we have a process now. First of all, we will create a repository internally, like JFrog is one of the repository we can choose to keep all of our jars. And as part of our process, whenever any developer think that certain jar should be added in our repository, which can enhance our productivity and coding abilities, then we can design a process where those jars will first be scanned by our tools, and those tools will check all the code which is present in those jars by uploading the sources of those jars also, which means by actually uploading the entire content of the jar. And then we can generate a report depending upon the checks and the criteria which we have in the process. We can safely upload them in our repository, and it can be available to the developers.
Do you use any tools currently in your product?
uh, well, there are certain tools. I did not get a chance to work upon them because most of the things which I was working upon was adding changes into the product, and I'm unable to recollect. But if you want, I can do a quick research and come up with the all the tools which we were using in the product, and probably anything which we can use in future also.
Okay.
So this is one good thing. People usually count me in for all the research and development scenarios. I can prepare a complete report of all different pros and cons of choosing one tool over other, or of choosing one solution over other, and then we can do this discussion. This is what I usually do with most of the architects and developers in our organization.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So, so you are using agile methodology as you said. So, what are the different agile meetings you follow day by day?
Yeah, so the most first meeting is the scope definition and the task creation. Here we pull up all the tasks from our backlog and we see if we can complete that in our sprint. And when the actual development start, we create the spikes on those tasks which developers doesn't have much understanding of. The intention of creating a spike task before the development task is to dive deep into the actual scenarios of those developments and how much of a development would be required, and this is also part of the estimation process. So task creation, scope defining, ETA and spikes, then our development starts. In that development we go through the entire dev cycle, and then we do a code freeze. After code freeze, all the QAs go through the dev and QA testing scenarios, and they give a sign off, and then we merge in our QA and dev branches. So we have certain QA and dev branches out of the actual master branches. Certain clients wants to fork the repositories on the developer's machine before actually taking the branches out of the master branches. After all these scenarios completed, we do the retrospective meetings also, where we mention certain processes and improvements or communication, whatever you think we should do to improve the process.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Yeah.
And I think DevOps tools you are using. What are the tools?
So we use Jenkins.
Okay.
Many people use Jenkins. I have seen Circle.ai also getting used somewhere in the past in one of the startup. So these are all the pipeline, the deployment pipelines. It helps us automate the build and deployment of our changes to the appropriate environments. So dev, QA, and production also is possible through that.
Okay, and issue management tool you are using Jira.
Issue management, you're saying?
Yeah, issue management tool. Are you using
Jira only.
Jira?
Jira only. In
Okay.
Jira, we have the dev tasks. Then we have the issues, which we call bugs,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have rest of the epics and certain other different type of tasks.
Okay. And so, do you know Kafka?
Kafka, I'm aware of.
Okay. So,
So,
So, what do you know about
sorry.
Kafka? Anything in short?
Yeah.
You want to
So
tell?
Kafka, ActiveMQ, and RabbitMQ, these are all queues and broker mechanism. Kafka is specifically very popular because it was created by LinkedIn in 2010, and Kafka is a bigger framework. So it is not just queue, but it is a complete framework around maintaining the queues. It has brokers. It has we can maintain certain queues. We can maintain certain brokers, and we can keep all these brokers in a distributed manner in our cloud. And certain topics can be splitted into certain partitions on all the brokers. So it is, you can say, it is a complete distributed queue maintenance mechanism framework.
Okay. So similar to that, in AWS, do you know any service?
Yes, there are certain services.
Do you know the names?
And to be honest, as part of certification, I had the names exactly. We have the SQS in AWS, which is a queue service, and then we have SNS, which is a notification service. But I think your question is more going towards the SQS because that is a queue service we are using.
Yeah, okay. So when you go to the Kubernetes, so do you know what is pod?
Pod.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pod. I may be wrong here because honestly, I'm not very good in memorizing all the information. I really do things in the real time whenever any requirement comes. Otherwise, I do not hold information in. Do not unable to memorize all the information. But I think pod, you are referring to that one particular Docker inside the Kubernetes, which is actually the single node, you can say, which will participate in the multi-node architecture of the Kubernetes. I may be wrong here.
Yeah, you can tell the architecture of Kubernetes.
So Kubernetes is a complete framework, like we have the Kafka as a complete framework around the queue management. Similarly, we have the Kubernetes as a complete framework around the Dockerization management. And what we do, it is used for the scalability purpose. We can create and spawn multiple nodes there, which we call Docker in the Dockerization. In Kubernetization, we might be calling it pod. So we can, in real time, create various nodes, and depending upon the criteria or the policy which we have mentioned as part of our auto scaling. So there can be step or a simple scaling policy, and then we can mention specific criteria also as a programming language. We can mention that if the number of requests increase up to this particular threshold, then increase the number of nodes in the Kubernetization. And when it goes down, then those nodes gets deleted automatically, and we save our cost from the cloud perspective.
Okay, got it.